Hello, everyone. We are a mining consultancy that has provided independent professional advice to mining companies, providers of capital, law firms, and government agencies for over 30 years. Staffed by senior industry consultants with extensive international experience, we are here to discuss relevant topics for the benefit of our mineral industry followers. And now, here is your host, Micon's Mineral Resource Specialist, Alan San Martin.
Hello, everyone. I am Alan San Martin, your host here in the Micon Insights. We are a mining consultancy that we provide these discussions for you to hear from the experts directly and to have an engaging discussion about multiple topics. Before we begin, I would like to say our sustainability statement. At Micon, we work with our clients to promote responsible mining and to integrate the principles of sustainability into their mining projects. The topic for today, it is geological and resource models, understanding the differences. Today is joining me and co-hosting our geologist in the Toronto office, Chitrali Sarkar. Chitrali, welcome to Micon Insights. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Great. So I know that our geologists and clients, they love to talk geology. So that's what we're going to do today. And when we start saying geological model and resource model, what are they, Chitra?
So, geological and resource model, I believe both of those constitute the very underlying foundation of the mining and mineral exploration business. While a geological model can be the initial interpretation of all the relevant information, let's say an exploration campaign can generate, on the other hand, a resource model, that is the model which adds the economical value to it. And when we say economical, so we of course know the grade and tonnage information are the most important ones.
Okay, so if we dive a little bit more into the differences, can you mention some of the differences between a geological and a resource model?
Yeah, of course. Like geological model, basically, this is the understanding of the geology of the deposit. Like you are interpreting a geology of the deposit from the drill hole information, and basically you create a three-dimensional geological model. And this model will represent the lithology, the alteration information, structural information like fault or fold of the area. So this is geological model. And when we talk about resource model, the most important part is we define a boundary of mineralization within the geological model. And when we say mineralization boundary, so it is the grade of the mineralization, how continuous it is, those are very important. And of course, we apply some cutoff grade. Now, when I say cutoff grade, it's not the economic cutoff grade, but when we say mineralization, it has some value to it. So that will be defined in resource model.
Okay, so in the geological model, what is the most important thing to consider when you're building a geological model per se?
A geological model basically starts with a very robust data set. A robust data set should contain information about geology, lithology, structure. I think I mentioned all of these. And you have to incorporate everything that can control your mineralization. Now, rather than building a very quick model, I would recommend spending some good time to build the robust geological model, because your resource model will be based on this geological model.
Yeah. So in building this or preparing these models, can you tell us about what are the steps you follow to do it?
All right, I'll start with the geological model one.
Yeah.
And the very first thing is you have to have a very sound geological understanding of the deposit. Like the genesis of deposit is also very important. Now, I would recommend like prepare or review the geological database. If you have already a database, just review it, do a very robust set of QAQC, how the data has been accumulated and what are the caller survey, those needs to be checked with the original data. And then you define the different lithological units of that area, also how the chronology is happening, like which litho is taking place after what, and then you incorporate the structural information. Also, another thing is necessary if there is any important surface feature, you need to incorporate all those things in your geological model. And all of these can make a model very robust one. And now the resource model. So the steps, the list of the steps are quite long enough. You start with preparing a resource database. And when I say resource database, of course, it includes assay information on top of all those scholar survey and litho information. And when this assay comes into play, you have to maintain a proper QAQC protocol while doing it. As a QP, we recommend checking how the QAQC has been done with the field geologist, and that's important. Then you perform some statistical analysis to see how your grade distribution is happening. Is there only one zone or multiple zones? How are the grades? Can you distinguish between a high grade and a low grade? On the basis of all this information, then you start making a mineralized wireframe. And of course, this wireframe will tell you about the main commodity which you are considering. Not necessarily a main one, you can consider having multiple commodity as well. Now, yes, grade continuity I have talked about. And the next step, I think the important one will be you composite the grade, and then you do some capping of the grades, because top cut of very high grade can eliminate your outlier data. Next will be some geostatistical analysis, which will assist you to understand how the grade can reasonably be interpolated. Now, generally, we do it with help of a block model, and the blocks will be based on like deposit geometry, and sometimes mining methods, and sometimes like selective mining units. Like you are showing a very good picture of a block model there.
Yeah.
So yeah, like different colors of the blocks are giving you an idea about where your high grades are. This is a section we are looking into, like how the high grade is inside, and low grade zone is making a halo outside of a high grade. So that was the nature of deposit over there. So yes, the next will be interpolating your blocks, where you are essentially assigning values to the blocks. And the next important is reporting your resource. Now, while we report our resource, it's important to have a mining constraint, like the CIM guidelines tells us about reporting mining constraint. Now, be it open pit, be it underground, but it has to be within some mining constraint.
All right. Okay, so when you have these models, you have all the geological model and the resource model. Do you keep them separate, or is the same model that it has two different parts? How do you manage that?
That's interesting, because one model is built on another. Like resource model is built on a very good geological model, so it's preferable you model the geology first, then you perform a resource model, and you of course consider the geology as a foundation, because as I said, like without having a sound geological knowledge of the deposit, the resource model will not be very useful. And without having a knowledge about geology, it will be a dangerous one, because it can be a misrepresentation of the resource of that area.
Okay. Yeah, geology, the foundation. Yeah, we agree on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are the key things to keep in mind when you are doing these models?
For resource model, there are few things to keep in mind. I would like to point out few of them.
Yeah.
Now, assay is a very important part of resource model. So when you are dealing with the key element, it's a good idea to incorporate some associate elements as well, because it happens a lot of time we report our resource on equivalency. So you want to consider all the elements you have under consideration. Also, the deleterious element can play a major role, because it's only not about having, right, it's not only about having a good resource. If you have, let's say, arsenic, antimony, those kind of deleterious element in your
Yes.
high grade zone, yes, that can backfire you. Like, it's like very late in your value chain can make a big impact.
Right.
I would like to point out more about geometallurgical study, if whenever applicable, of course, a good geometallurgical study comes handy. A lot of time I have seen that we do not have information about density of all the litho units are there,
Yeah.
because yes, like when this mining model comes into picture, you need to have density information about the lithos, because on the basis of that you will make your next mining model. Mm. Another thing is, uh, when we deal with underground mining, a lot of time I have seen like very good grade that is running through very narrow vein.
Yeah.
And now the narrow vein can be very narrow, and if you are just doing your resource model on the basis of your actual vein width, you will ultimately end up having a good number of resorts and very nice tonnage, but that may not be practical always. So you need to consider a minimum mining width when you are
Yes.
doing a
Okay.
resource model. Yeah. Um, I think that's enough, but I would like to point out one more thing. Yes,
Yeah.
like when you are considering open pit, let's say you have a topography, but if the topography is not detailed enough and it is not having information about some historic pits, or let's say for underground, it doesn't have information about old underground workings, these
Yeah.
things are important while you report your resource. You do not want to over report. You always have to discount these historic mining things.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So, well, talking about all these details, what other problems you have faced doing models like this?
Well, I'd like to say concern, not really problem,
Yeah.
but we do encounter some concern. Like in geological model, a lot of time it happens that we as a consultant, I can give an example.
Yeah.
Like let's say an historical database, and historical database can sometimes have missing information. Now, when it's missing information, you always tend to make some assumption over there. But you need to understand that your assumption is reasonable or not. Also, the missing data should have some coherence with the current data, so that you are applying your assumption. Those are like how far it is judgment, judicial. Sorry.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of time multiple user of database, so you need to check all those things. Um, Always, like geologists, they do not agree on a single thing. They always have like multiple opinions, so always the end thing have to be reasonable enough. And for resource model, nowadays we have to categorize our resource while we report because it's under CIM guidelines. A QP should make like a judgmental decision while categorization, how confident are his method, how confident about the initial data. And a lot of time we ask our clients to supply for the economical parameters. Now, economical parameter can have different thing. Like when you do not have very good information about it, you tend to make information from, let's say, the adjacent property or any mining happening over there. You take information from those.
Yeah.
Again, everything should be very reasonable so that you confidently report your resources.
Yeah, of course, the confidence is very important.
Yes.
Yeah, so now, is there any requirements for the professional doing this? Do you have to be a QP, or who can prepare these models, and why it's important?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Now, any geologist can, of course, make a model if he has enough competence, enough understanding about the deposit, about the geology. Anybody can make it. But when the public disclosure comes into play, or you are trying to report your resource under, let's say, NI 4311 report,
Yeah.
then a QP should sign off on all the details which are written in the report. And of course, the QP should be independent from the miners or developers or the other side.
Yeah.
And like we as a Mycon team, we are independent, and we have, I believe we have all the capabilities of signing off on the reports.
All right. Okay. Well, let's start closing this conversation. Do you have any final words, Chitrali, for us?
Yes, for final words, I would say that when you are doing your models, you always peer review your model, because people can have different opinion, or a second look can always be helpful. They can help improving your model. And sometimes I like to build my initial model jointly with the exploration or field geologists, because they always see the rocks and see the deposit, what you are interpreting. If that is coherent with their observation, it will ultimately save you a lot of money when it is the resource. And always think about who will be using your model, like how useful your model can be. So think about a mining perspective, not only geology. Then your model will be very robust and helpful. That will be all.
All right, Chitrali, thank you very much for sharing this with us today. Have a good day. To all our audience, we are now ending this show, and we are not taking questions live, but we are welcome to contact us and to discuss your projects. We are happy to have you in our offices, or you can just call us, and you can arrange to meet Chitrali in person or have a conversation. Thank you very much for being with us today, and have a wonderful day. All the best.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to leave your comments or questions, and be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter so you're kept informed on future episodes.